evening, cult members. Welcome to Pop Culture Cult. I'm Sean.
I'm Janice.
And welcome to our reaction, discussion, review, spoiler-filled of episode 5 of Miss Marvel, called A Time and Again. I'm going to say a couple things in this episode that I've already talked about in previous episodes, so just that you've been warned, it's just going to happen. But this is what has become the MO for Marvel TV shows, is that the 5th of 6 episodes, the penultimate episode, whatever,
right,
is the episode where we pause the overall story to go back and do some story building, some exposition, some whatever
explanation,
whatever you want to call it. And this was that. But overall, this felt like maybe it was supposed to be 2 episodes.
Okay.
There's obviously one big part, and then there's another, it's like an extended post-credit scene that's not after the credits.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe because we talked about it in the last episode, where the part where Kamran and his mom and the other people from the other dimension were running, like that.
Yeah,
part felt so. Maybe there was all supposed to be more to that story.
I
don't know.
It just feels a little. I like this episode a lot.
Yeah.
But it just felt a little out of place. I'm not gonna say disjointed, but it just, like, the last 15 minutes where Kamran and Bruno get together and, like, all of that.
I wouldn't even say that was 15 minutes. It was like 5 minutes.
Maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That kind of, it felt like a post-credit scene. They just put it, like,
Sure.
if they put that as the post-credit scene, I think it hits better with me.
Okay.
Just as a setup for the last episode, for the very.
it was a post-credit scene.
Huh? Oh, it kind of was, but
it was a pre-credit scene.
It's a
pre-post-credit scene. I didn't feel that way at all with this one, anywhere near like
the last
one. The last one felt kind of weird. This just felt like. It did feel like a post-credit scene, but I didn't notice it at all until you said something.
It just felt a little clunky. The more I kind of thought about it, I was kind of setting up. It just felt it felt clunky, and not in like a clunky like it ruins the episode for me.
Yeah,
it will probably all make sense once we look at the whole thing overall.
Right. Well, they've got to tie it up, right? Kamran is now running around New Jersey with his mom inside of him. Weird.
It's so weird. Okay, so let's start back to the beginning. The Marvel logo is in black, like oldie times, black and white.
Right.
And they start the episode talking about the day the partition actually happened.
Yep.
And the news discussion that was that, and why it was kind of being done the way it was, but it
actually, I think they went back
a little bit further than that
to kind of explain.
They started like, here's a petition. Oh wait, let me. There's too much. Let me back up.
Yeah, with them being occupied by England, and then Gandhi kind of coming in and trying to keep it calm, right? Keep everybody calm, and how there was a lot of rioting and people were mad, and I understand all of that even better now, why Pakistan is Muslim, and it's kind of grouped in with the stands here in the U.S., and then India is predominantly Hindu, and
and a large Christian basis also in India too.
Now,
that back then it was pretty much Hindu and Muslim.
That probably came from being occupied by Britain. Do you have a flag?
Yes, I do. By the way, I have multiple flags. the point of telling the partition story the way they did was to kind of give you context of Aisha being on the run a little bit, getting away from the other Jinn to make sure that the bauble doesn't get to them.
Yeah.
And that she was trying to hide in this little village, and they, the uh, dad's name I did not, Hassan.
Yeah.
I think it's Hassan.
Yeah.
Uh, was like preaching the non-violent thing within his little village, and then the British came in and kind of broke up the little demonstrations they were,
yeah,
whatever, and that kind of leads to her hiding in his roses, and then there's flirty, and then like we like we get to Aisha giving birth to Nina.
Yep.
So we kind of joked that great grandma was hot, great grandpa was hot too. You always see your grandparents as they're old. You don't realize that they were hot young 20-year-olds at some point in time in their lives. But it was to tell the story of the partition and how we get to the train scene from the previous episode where Kamala shows up.
Right.
Like to tell that story and the love story of great grandma and grandpa.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked that kind of dual storytelling at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I really like this episode as well, and I feel like it answered a lot of questions, right? So, like, why? Because when was that? The second episode when all the Jinns showed up, and you see the flashback to them being in that hole in the ground, and
when they find the bauble,
when they find it, and I'm like, wait a minute, that means there's two because Aisha had one.
Right.
And then
kind of disappeared.
And so I'm like, well, how did Kamala get it? There has to be another one, right?
Right.
So it answered that question. And then just it answers a ton of questions, right? Like, how did Nana
yeah,
see the stars? And you kind of figured that it had to have something to do with the bauble, but how that happened was not
right,
not what I expected.
Right. Right.
And then just kind of how they ended up, like the fact that what was going on in that town allowed Aisha to kind of blend in.
Yeah.
And Hassan to take her in because he assumes she's running from whatever. She's Muslim and she's trying, running, trying to get back to what is going to be India or whatever, right? So her just showing up and sleeping in his rose garden didn't seem super strange, right? And he didn't have to ask any questions because he kind of knew. So that kind of helped. Otherwise, it's like, why is this person here? And why is nobody asking any questions about where she came from?
Right. In a typical situation, you would definitely have that moment of, why is there some strange person hanging out in my garden?
Yeah.
But because the partition is going on and it's affecting everything that's around them, and it's they were listening to the news radio when she was singing, when Aisha was singing to grandma. Like it was just a kind of I'm not gonna say convenient. That's the easy word to use there. It's a very good way to tie in the history of what was going on with this history of the show,
right?
And this character, and I love that. I love that I'm learning more about the India Pakistani view of the world at the partition and what that means for Muslims all over the world, what it means for this show in particular. But I talked about this in previous reviews and discussions. I didn't know anything about this because my American history classes didn't teach it.
Right.
Like I knew of Gandhi, but I didn't know, and I knew it had to deal with English control of India, but they never really talk about what it was like for India being under British control, and then the whole partition of we get to keep all of this and you guys get to go over there because you're the weirdos with the weird different religion. And so like that's just something that I never really learned, and I learned more about it in this one episode, but the series overall than I ever had before. And that's part of the reason why I'm really loving this show is because of that. And you're also getting this woman coming of age and learning about herself and learning about her mother and her mother learning about her mother and like we'll get into that in a minute. But like I really liked that they used the partition as their almost MacGuffin in this episode of why things are happening.
Origin story.
It's kind of
origin story for the women in this family
and
the bauble.
Yeah.
And they're like, it's not just the bauble, right? Because Aisha is an alien, from another dimension.
Right.
So a djinn. So it's not just that they had this bauble, but they also have this blood, and it's obviously in the women. Although now I wonder if you can like if Kamala dies, can she put herself into
her brother or
Bruno? Not that we want Kamala to die.
No. But but because let's go there. We've kind of we could talk about the partition and the love story and let's
Why am I crying about something that happened 80 years ago?
Right. Almost 100 years ago at this point in time. Let's talk about Kamala's the one who saves Grandma. And uses her powers, and she follows the stars, and Kamala's like, oh my god, it's me. And it was Aisha who called on the bauble to bring something to help Grandma get to great grandpa, to Hassan, and that call, her using the bauble, her using her powers, that call brings Kamala to the train station at the day of the last day of the partition,
right?
And it ends up being Kamala who helps her get along.
Yep.
And I some people are going to say that's kind of convenient time travel, blah, yada yada, whatever. But we're Doctor Who fans, so yeah, that totally makes sense. Of course, it's
right.
Of course, it's the Doctor who hits the button to blow up Pompeii. We just watched that episode. Of course it was. But after all of that happens, Kamala goes back to her time, and when she gets there, everybody's laid out on the floor, like a big giant explosion happened. They all turn around, and the gateway is open between dimensions.
Right. But it's not it's not like they can just walk right through.
Right. The first one to walk through was, her name is right here,
but
Farina, and she gets hit with a mist, a lightning, a mixture of both or whatever, and then she gets covered what looked like the Terrigen shell from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I'm like, oh my god, for like for a hot second they're going to do it, and then the shell explodes and her skeleton is there, and it just all crumbles to the ground.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is a great misdirect of the Terrigen kind of conversation.
Right.
I'm sure that's going to come back up at some point in time.
Right. Well, and it could just be this super deadly dose of the Terrigen, right?
Yeah.
Because there's
in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they did have people who went through the Terrigen mist transformation who did not make it, and they ended up like that.
Yeah.
And some who had the genetic gene in them, the X gene or the Inhuman gene, were the ones who were able to make it through, like Quake, like
yeah.
So it's kind of it's almost an Easter egg, but not quite, because it's much more to do about trying to go through the gate, and the gate being like, no.
Yeah, maybe. And I mean, it's something that they can come back to if they continue with episodes,
Yeah.
or in something else, they could, explain it a little further and uh, you know, um, test it, or start working with it to.
I think the DODC is going to end up being the big bad.
Yeah,
That's going to
maybe
be
they
trying
could
to
get
do
their
something like
hands
that.
on it
Yeah.
and then start kind of working with it to.
Especially
Oh, if we
since
give you a little less, or if you have the
DODC is
gene.
going to be. I'm envisioning they're going to be the hybrid between Hydra and Agents of Shield
Yeah,
are.
yeah, yeah.
That's kind of what it feels like right now. But in that whole exchange, Kamala uses her powers to help get everybody out, and Red Dagger helps everybody get out, and then Naja, Naj, Najma, um, tries. I'm the one who can actually make it through the gate. She's the last one of the Jinn still standing, and she tries to go, and Kamala's like, Aisha just wanted to be with her family. You would take that away from Kamran, and she's like, I've already left him behind. It doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
And he's like, and she's like, that's all Aisha wants, and you're now gonna just that's all Kamran wants. How can you be like this?
Yeah.
And she's like, you know what? You're right. I should be with him. And she becomes a smoke monster and is now part of Kamran's essence or whatever.
Yeah.
And then she says his name, steps towards the gate, and closes the gate.
Yeah.
And then while all that's all happening, Kamala is shielding up her and Red Dagger, and then Mom shows up.
Surprise!
What is going on? You didn't answer your phone, so I had to track you down with child GPS. The whole joke about Nina saying
when her
dog, so I chipped her, and if I could chip my kid, I would have told me if it's legal or whatever.
If it wasn't illegal.
But Mom being accepting that Kamala is Light Girl, because that's what they're calling her now.
Yeah.
Instead of being, oh my God, where have you been? Why have you not talked to me? Why are you not answering your phone? Just being that overly protective mother that she was early on, it showed up the growth process for her.
Yeah.
Which allows her to accept her mom for being there. And she even says later on, like, I wasn't ready to hear what you had to say until now. And now...
Well, she wasn't ready to let her go.
And she wasn't she said that to her mom, and then she said to Kamala, the reason I'm so protective is I'm not ready to let you go.
Yeah.
And so, like, there's a super good closure between all of them.
Yeah.
Of everything, and accepting of who they are, who Kamala is, and everything. And I like that nice little bow that's wrapped up there. That feels like the end of the last episode, kind of a bow, and then there's like a big barbecue at the end or whatever. So having it here, this is that part where I'm like, it doesn't feel clunky to me. It feels earned and right in the pattern.
Well, and so just talking about that now, I kind of feel like the scene with Bruno and Kamran is that scene that you're talking about that closes out Kamala in
Karachi City.
Yeah. That closes out her story there.
Yeah.
And the
Red
reason
Dagger lets her go,
and the reason why she was having the weird flashes of the train and everything, and kind of the origin of the bauble and why she's a djinn and all of that. So that closes out that story. So they start up this last, which is what's going to be the last episode, because don't forget the DODC is still out there. They still have these things they're tracking Inhumans or special powered people or whatever,
enhanced.
And Kamran is now one of those people, and so this is kind of the beginning of the end of the last episode.
And he in the comics gets essentially the same kind of power set. He's that blue glow because of the Terrigen mist and everything. He gets the blue glow, and his hand does that with when his mom's essence enters him, and he fires at the DODC's drone, Stark drone. We have to have the conversation about the Stark drones at some point in time. But he now fulfills that part of the comic. I'm so sorry. I'm going to scratch you and blah, 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 blah. He fulfills that. Like, now he's that guy that gives Kamala a superpowered teammate within Jersey City.
Yeah.
And it's not Red Dagger, which we probably will get more Red Dagger in season 2 if they do a season 2 kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because they kind of talked about that. If you ever need my help, I'm just a phone call away.
Yeah.
I'm sure the government has got warrants out for my arrest or whatever, but they hinted at that idea or whatever. But with Kamran there, now we can have a proper on DODC Kamran Kamala battle royale in the last episode.
Yep.
And Bruno the entire time. Like, I feel for Bruno. He wants to be with Kamala so badly, or at least that's the way they've kind of been implementing it as they go along, and he's just being the really good supportive friend. And then this hot guy comes along, doesn't remember his name. I love Kamran. Like, can we just start over on Kamran? He's like, I'm Bruno. He's like, I swear it was Brian. I'm really sorry. I wasn't trying to be a dick.
Because Bruno a couple episodes ago is like, he knows my name is Bruno.
Yeah. But his Kamran's kind of comment there is, I have to stay here because my mom will come find me. She's not just going to leave me.
Right.
So that's heartbreaking. And then he kind of like, you don't understand. Or I don't want to be an orphan or whatever, however he words it or whatever. And Bruno just kind of sits down because he is.
Right.
And so there's like that pause and that realization, like, okay, I'm not doing great here. Can we just be better with each other and try to figure this out? And they finally, like, it's only like a 5-minute scene, but the idea that they kind of, we're going to bury the hatchet because we need to figure this out because Kamala is going to need our help.
Yeah.
And then the drone shows up.
Right.
And then blows up the Circle Q. And like, so.
Right. Did the drone do that, or did Kamran do that?
I think it's Kamran because he doesn't know his powers yet.
Yeah.
His powers.
Yeah.
That's really what I think it is. But in the grand scheme of things, I have no idea what this last episode's going to be.
Well, I mean, Bruno's now homeless.
Right.
And Kamran's going to be homeless. And so, because
it's going to be like the deli shop from the Spider-Man Home trilogy.
Yeah.
Like, it's like it's the
Circle Q2 and Circle Q3. And
you have to blow up the secret layer at some point in time in the story. It just has to happen.
Well,
it's required.
So, I mean, that's like a catalyst for Bruno then going to Caltech or wherever he got accepted, because now he doesn't even have a place to live.
Yeah. And he's going to be like, I'm done with this craziness here.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if he'll... But maybe. But he'll be, he's homeless, and so he'll go do that. And then if they do another season... Because it was like an internship or a paid young student
something like
immersion thing or whatever. So he'll come back, but like summer camp, he'll go away.
Camp. What was it in Stranger Things? It wasn't Crystal Lake. Camp Lehigh. No, that's Captain America. He'll come back with a shirt, whatever. NASA camp. NASA camp. My only other question going into the last episode is, are we going to get Photon or Captain Marvel?
Right.
They're going to have to do some kind of pause. I feel like they're going to do some kind of setup for the Marvels movie that's coming out next year.
Yeah.
And
they did have something for Moon Knight, and they decided to pull it. So they wanted to keep it a little more on its own.
Right. But they've made
this has got to tie in to that
and
movie.
they've made such a big deal in the first 2 episodes about Avenger Con and Scott Lang's podcast and
it'll
images.
Be Scott Lang.
It was if Scott Lang period shows up, like is on the podcast. He starts talking about this light girl and like
in the studio today we have light girl.
Yeah. Like that would be kind of cool. Like that would be a nice little tie-in. This is the show where you have that kind of tie-in.
Yeah.
It's as much as we projected on WandaVision, and it was affected by Endgame and Infinity War and Endgame, it wasn't directly tied into the rest of the MCU until we got to the final credits
at that point, yeah.
with the Darkhold. And so in Moon Knight, they took that out because they wanted freestanding. Loki was all about everything that's happened before and continuous and everything and whatever and what's going to happen in the future with Kang and all that stuff. So there's all this connective tissue that's kind of laid out there that I feel like they're going to have something there to say, oh yeah, by the way, the DODC, is in this big fight with Kamala and Kamala, and then Photon shows up because she's the head of Sword now. You know, that kind of thing. It just kind of feels like that makes sense, but I'm not the storytellers telling the story, and I'm not the storytellers telling the next story. So from my point of view, this is what I think I would like to see, but I'm not married to it. Like, I'm like, if at the end they're like, yay, we're all back together, we can go to mosque together, and and I can wear my mask and not be recognized as Miss Marvel. That's going to be the big reveal because they kind of hinted at the symbol with her necklace, and she got her full costume, almost full costume in the previous one. So Mom's going to make her a new outfit because they kind of hinted at that.
Well, Red Dagger, he gave her the
scarf.
Scarf, so that's part of her.
Yeah, so Mom's going to be the one that's like, okay, if you're just going to who you're going to be, you need a secret identity. Here's we got all these all this stuff, and Mom's going to make the costume for her.
Don't make a bigger size for Dad, like she did the Hulk costumes.
And I'm here for it. Anything else we want to talk about this episode?
No.
So we got, like we said, one more left. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel. Wait, let me back up. We have one episode left, so definitely come back and help us figure out what we're gonna do in this how this last episode is gonna go. Anyways, let us know what you thought of this episode.
Words.
And what the next episode is gonna be like. We have 3 trailer reactions to do too. So let us know what you thought in this reaction and review in the comments down below. Please be nice. That's a requirement around here. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, follow us on all the social media stuff, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Links in the description down below. And until next time, cult members, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.